Welcome to the Daily Exchange, guys. We're here with George Harrap from Bitspark, and we're talking all about moving from Bitcoin to stablecoins for cross-border payments and transfers. It's great stuff, guys. We'll see you guys right after this. All right, guys, welcome back. We're here today with George Harrap, CEO and co-founder of Bitspark. We've got his Twitter handle here as well. Welcome, George, to the Daily Exchange.
Well, thank you very much. Great to be here.
Awesome stuff. Guys, there's George's Twitter handle. Do follow him and check it out. Now, a bit of background. George founded Bitspark in 2014. He co-founded that with, I believe, other partners as well. It's a crypto company which specializes in cross-border payments and transfers, actually doing that on Bitcoin to begin with. And we're going to be talking all about how he has currently launched the Hong Kong-based stablecoin and how transitioning from using Bitcoin to the stablecoin for the cross-border payments. And just by way of note, George is an early Bitcoiner from 2011. Just wanted to, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that experience back then, George?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, you know, I've been in it for a while, so I can dust off some crypto cred maybe, but no, I got into it originally back in Australia in the mining scene. So, you know, I started buying stuff off eBay and literally just building a miner in Canberra, which in the winter, very cold. So having a heater which makes money is the best kind of heater that you can get. So that sounded like a great idea back then, and it's probably still a good idea now.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Bitspark, cross-border payment transfers. Tell us, you know, who do you work with, and I guess, you know, how does it work?
Yeah, so Bitspark is probably the oldest cryptocurrency remittance company. We've been around for almost 5 years now. And, you know, through that time, we've been focusing on using the use case of cryptocurrencies for money transfers and being able to convert that for real everyday people that want to actually just send money. You know, not everyone needs to be a crypto expert, understand what a blockchain is, how does mining work, or, you know, what's a wallet, you know, all this kind of stuff. You know, the people who actually want to send money are just like, I walk up to a physical location. You know, this is how money moves around the world, is these physical cash shops. Think of a Western Union. And they walk up to the Western Union with some cash in their pocket. They say, I want to send my money to X location. The physical shop takes the money, and then at the other end, the money appears through some magic, and then it gets distributed at the other end. That's generally how money transfers work. So the question and the thesis for what we're trying to do is, can you actually use cryptocurrency to be able to settle those payments across borders? And we've been doing it for almost 5 years now, predominantly in Southeast Asia. And our core customers are really the money transfer companies themselves. So, you know, we originally started with the idea of, you know, do we provide a product for the individuals? And we actually did. We physically got out there. We had a physical location. We were doing money transfers. You can Google us, 2014, Hong Kong, Philippines, cash in, cash out. You know, remitters did not need to know how the money moved, whether it was via crypto or whatever other means. They just knew that they got a better rate and it was faster and cheaper. So, you know, and that's really what they care about. So, you know, from that, we actually found, you know what, it is pretty hard to scale a business for the individuals, because you're kind of just like everybody else, right? You're like, I'm some company that can offer you faster, cheaper transfers, whatever. Everybody else is shouting that. So what we found was applying our technology to the money transfer shops themselves is really where it's at. So, you know, we can enable one money transfer shop to use crypto settlement, and then that means all of their customers, you know, become, you know, using cryptocurrency. So, you know, that's sort of where we've grown the business, and where our focus is on is being this sort of back end for existing money transfer companies.
Okay. Now let's talk about the actual problem a little bit more, because I think it's very important. Cash in in one place, one country, cash out in another, and then currently in the beginning you started using Bitcoin to do this. Can you tell us about that actual problem? So can you just sort of walk us through a little more detail about that?
Yeah, so to give a bit of context, there's about almost $700 billion around the world, which moves through official channels, cash in, cash out. So pretty much when we talk about the world's remittances, we're actually talking about cash movements. It's about 95% of all of the remittance transfers. So often, when there's a new fintech thing come along that's like, oh, we do, online transfers or something like that. In countries that people are actually sending money to, India, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Nigeria, less than 20% of the population has a bank account. So it doesn't really matter whatever you do online. You're not servicing the majority of the population. So you really need to, be able to service cash. So, the problem is that often moving cash around the world is expensive. It can be upwards of 15% to move money around the world. And that's generally for people which are only sending maybe $200, and every dollar counts, right? If you're losing $30 on a $200 transfer, that's terrible. And that you're doing that every single month. So the problem to really solve, and this has been around for decades really, is you have these existing agent networks like your Western Unions of the world, MoneyGrams, all in these different countries around the world. They're accepting the cash, they're moving the cash, but in some currencies it can be quite expensive. So the problem statement is really, can you move it cheaper? And we started with Bitcoin because Bitcoin is this sort of international cryptocurrency that's traded 24/7. Banks close at 5 p.m. What if you want to do a transfer at 8 p.m.? Or what if you want to do a transfer on Sunday morning? You literally cannot do it with the existing banking system, but with crypto you can. So it was about sort of being able to prove that. And why Bitcoin? Well, if a couple of reasons really. The first one, we'll take a step back. How does money move currently? If I'm a traditional money transfer company, I can't do a Swift transfer for $200 every single time, right? It's too expensive. Because if I go to my bank and I go, I want to send $200, please, they'll say, yeah, that's about $30 transaction fee, and then we're going to charge you, a percentage on the rate, and by the time the money gets there at the other end, it's just not very good. So, what they actually do is, because they can't do individual, remittance transactions, they do all of them in one bulk. So they will get, 100 of these $200 transfers, and that'll be, $20,000, and then they'll go and send in advance to their partner at the other end $20,000. So they have to come up with a 20K first, and they have to send it in the first, before they even start, to their partner at the other end. So when somebody comes to their physical shop on the sender side, the money's already sitting there in the recipient side. And what they can do is they can just, draw down on it. So what does this mean? Well, it means you need to come up with a bunch of money, right? And, what if you don't have $20,000, $100,000 to come up with in the first place? In the traditional world, well, you can't play. But with the crypto world, you can actually send $2 overseas. You can buy and sell $2 worth of Bitcoin and be able to send that overseas without the need to do this pre-funding stuff. So, essentially that's one of the key benefits. And, there's also differences in pricing as well. So in the case of some developing countries around the world, the Bitcoin price is higher. So in the case of, Indonesia is a great example of this. Sometimes Vietnam, Nigeria, similar, whereby the Bitcoin price is just higher there. So if I send $100, I literally get $102 in the destination country. So you make money by sending. So, that is some of the two key benefits: is you reduce the amount of capital required, and you can make use of this arbitrage difference as well.
Makes sense. Now, so currently with the platform, obviously you're currently, you said, using Bitcoin to make all these transfers, and now you've built this. And let's talk about this new stablecoin in a sec. But you're in the transition from Bitcoin to this stablecoin. Why is that?
Yeah, so Bitcoin works fine for many countries in the world, whereby, and you can be able to buy Bitcoin in one location and sell Bitcoin in another location. A good example of that is the Philippines. The Philippines now has some crypto regulations, and there's tons of crypto remittance companies there. And that was only brought about because the volume was growing so rapidly for remittances there. So, generally what happens is if somebody wants to send from Hong Kong to the Philippines, we will buy Bitcoin in one location and then we will sell it in the Philippines for the destination currency and then pay it out. So that's fundamentally how it works. But the problem is this, often we have a money transfer shop that comes to me and is like, hey, George, I'm a money transfer shop in Sri Lanka, right? I think your system's great. I really want to use it. Can I sign up? And my answer to him is, well, oh man, I wish I could, but Sri Lankan rupee is not exactly a liquid currency in the cryptocurrency world. Like if I send you some Bitcoin right now, there's literally nowhere that I can exchange that Bitcoin for Sri Lankan rupee. There's no exchange, there's no broker, there's none of that. Now, Sri Lanka is a big remittance country. It's billions of dollars. So that is a country we would like to service. But with Bitcoin or any coin, right? It could be Ethereum, it could be Ripple, it could be Stellar, whatever. There's literally no local fiat liquidity. So Bitcoin is actually the best in this case for many countries because there is local fiat liquidity, but in some there's just not. So the solution really is a stable coin, because if I can buy, let's say a bit rupee, let's just say a stable coin pegged to the rupee, I'm now able to hold a balance in rupee. When before I was not. I was not able to hold that balance because that guy at the other end in Sri Lanka, he's paying out cash to his recipient. So he's down cash. So in our system, we need to be able to provide him a rupee balance. So we need the ability to buy a bit rupee, a digital rupee with our cryptocurrency. And that's what stablecoins do, is you can actually buy a bit rupee or some stable coin to your national currency. And you can do that in any currency in the world, anywhere in the world. So that is why we're in the transition now from Bitcoin to stablecoins, because it just gives us more access. We can access more countries, more currencies, and ultimately service more customers.
So I guess with the rupee example, with the bit rupee, do you need liquidity on the other side for the stable coin of the bit rupee?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Like usually when you are, let's say there was an exchange there, right? A Bitcoin exchange, and I sent the Bitcoin there, there would have to be local rupee liquidity. So there would have to be people who have deposited rupee and are willing to exchange it for Bitcoin. Now, that is dependent on people who have rupee bank accounts and have signed up to that exchange over there and have deposited that rupee and are ready to go and exchange it, right? So you're kind of limited to how does is Bitcoin big in that country or not? But if you have a stable coin, well, you actually have a global audience of people who can provide you liquidity. So especially for the algo stable coins, which like I can sit here in Hong Kong and I can make some bit rupee if I wanted to. I can lock up some crypto as collateral and then I can make a bit rupee, much like how MakerDAO works, how a bit USD works, bit CMY is you have some crypto as your collateral and then you can make the stable coin. So I could sit here and make a bit rupee. And that means that you're no longer dependent on the local liquidity in the local country. And that's a big difference. So the answer is, do you need liquidity? Yes. Is it a lot easier to get? Yes. Why? Because anybody in the world can provide that liquidity. It's not dependent on that local currency.
Makes sense. So let's talk about your stablecoin. You've recently launched the Bitspark Hong Kong dollar. I believe it's called the SparkDex HKD or SD HKD, the code that is for everyone. Tell us a bit about that and why you started it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, many of our customers are the physical money transfer shops, right? So they are receiving cash from people, and generally what happens is they might take that cash that they receive and then put it in their bank account and then send the money from their bank to us or Western Union or whoever else in order to fund their account. The problem is that the banks these days all around the world don't like the money transfer industry. They don't like cash, and they're trying to remove the need for cash in the economy. So really the problem is, how do you service cash? Now, what we've done with SparkDex HKD is essentially it's backed by cash. So a money transfer shop can deposit cash in Hong Kong dollars, which is what they have, and they can receive our stablecoin. Now, with that stablecoin, we then buy crypto, and then we can send that crypto overseas to wherever the destination might be, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, whatever country it might be. So really, as a stablecoin, that's great, but it's also, it allows the money transfer shop to be able to deposit their cash, and instead of using a bank, which is going to shut them down, they can physically deposit their cash at a physical vault of Bitsparks in Hong Kong, and there's no risk of somebody closing your account and losing access to your money. So for our clients, that's really important, and that's why we've started the Sparked XHKD stablecoin, because it just makes it easier, to be able to receive deposits from our customers.
And fantastic. And I guess, just talking a bit about this, on your website, you've got a screenshot which talks about live without a bank. Now, Bitcoin's, history, I guess, is sort of, might say slightly anti-bank and living free from the state, or, I guess this is, a bigger goal, a bigger vision of with cryptocurrency. I'm interested, what is your view on that about, should people try and live without a bank?
Well, billions of people around the world already do. And that is a key thing is, why are they doing that? Well, it's because they literally cannot access a bank account. So, why does 80% of the population in Indonesia not have a bank account? It's not because banks just haven't thought up some, innovative way to service them. Banks just don't want to, because, if you're living in a country where, deposits are, let's say $100 or something for the average person, well, it doesn't really make economic sense for a bank to provide a service to you. So they just don't. So it's not as if, banking for everybody is going to come sometime soon. We've already seen that in Africa, whereby, people have just leapfrogged the banking system there by using mobile money. And just that's how people transact. So, I think the goal is you need to be able to access financial services, right? Everybody should be able to access the same financial services that we have, here in Hong Kong or in Sydney or in New York, wherever you are in the world. There's no limitation other than wherever you might live in the world. Perhaps it's difficult to get money into and out of the system. And I was in Tajikistan with the UN a couple of years ago, and 2 banks collapsed and everyone lost their money. And they were telling us about what happened and all this kind of stuff. And it's like people just went to the ATM and they just didn't have the money anymore. So, and that particularly happens in emerging markets around the world, is this sort of mistrust in the banking system. But what people do trust is they do trust the physical agents by the side of the road, who are like these Western Union shops or, mobile money agents. And they are the ones who are receiving the cash, and they are the ones who's transmitting it. So the question is, can crypto actually help solve that problem? So often when people are like, oh, Bitcoin, you can live without a bank. Yeah, cool, you can do that, and you can have a Bitcoin balance. But what if I need to pay groceries with it, in Vietnam or something like that? Can I actually do that? With Bitcoin, it's very difficult to actually pay someone in Bitcoin. So you've got to be able to convert it to cash. And how are you going to do that? So that's where we come in, is we're that vehicle to be able to be that bridge to convert it. So when I see people talking about being bankless in crypto, it's like, okay, that is a great goal. How are you going to do it? And it's like, well, currently the world uses cash. Can we leverage crypto to be able to help with that? And that's what we're all about. We have companies and people who use our system who just don't have a bank account, either because the bank has shut them down, or they're living in a place where it's just uneconomical to do so. So they just use our system without the need for a bank, which is fantastic and quite liberating for them.
And do those people have like an app or a wallet? Like, how do they go about then using the money?
Yeah, so one example is some money transfer operators actually in the UK. So these are licensed money transfer companies. They've been around for quite a while. They use our system without a bank because banking is very difficult there in the UK, and they need to send to basically different places in Asia. So what they do is essentially they deposit the cash at our physical vault location, or they exchange it into crypto. So essentially, they take the cash, exchange it into crypto. Now they've got crypto. They deposit that into Bitspark, and now they use that crypto to go and send. So as far as they're concerned, they don't need a bank, and they're still compliant with every regulation, because the regulations around the world generally don't stipulate how you settle payments. Regulators don't care that my name is Bitspark and his name is MoneyGram, and the regulator's not going to say you must use this service or that service. The regulator says you have to make sure you do the due diligence, receive the IDs and all this kind of stuff, right? So as long as you're doing that, you can settle pretty much however you want, it just so happens that using our system is a way for them to settle.
And so just sort of clarify on the other side, so from the UK right now, they're sending it through your system, say in crypto or they're depositing cash. And on the other side, how does that person get their money out currently?
Yeah, so we connect to many of the different cryptocurrency brokers, exchanges, and remittance companies around the world. In the case of the Philippines is a good one. There's probably about 5 cryptocurrency remittance companies there. We connect to all of them, and essentially their business model is pretty simple. Give them crypto, and they convert it to local pesos, and they cash out the pesos. So what we do is we just send the Bitcoin to our partners. They convert it at the local currency, and they cash it out via all of these different methods, which has coverage of tens of thousands of islands in the Philippines at physical cash locations as well. So, and we're routing payments to whoever's the best at that point in time.
That's incredible. And so there's the app here. We're just showing our community right now with the balances. You've got the pesos. And so they people in the Philippines, they know to go to these shops, I'm assuming, and then they can just, withdraw their cash.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much in the Philippines, there's existing coverage for some of the big companies there, like Cebuana, Mlua, Palawan. This is how people receive cash: is they go to these destinations, and these companies, they're traditional companies. They've been around for decades, but they have 20,000 locations. And wherever you are in the Philippines, there's going to be one of them. Now, they don't deal in crypto. So, essentially, we use one of our partners who handles the conversion of the crypto to the peso. Mm-hmm. And now that it's in peso, it can be cashed out by these existing guys. So, as far as the banks are concerned, or, these other guys, it's just pesos that are being distributed. It's not like, the bank is receiving some Bitcoin and then the bank needs to do something with the Bitcoin. It's already being converted into the peso and then cashed out.
Awesome. That's incredible. Now, with your stablecoin, tell us, you've talked a lot about on Bloomberg the other day about the stablecoins being great for cross-border payments. There's obviously these, a lot of changes happening in the stablecoin space right now. And maybe even central governments getting involved. Do you think that's going to happen? What's sort of your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think central banks definitely will get involved, and they'll issue their own coin. Why? Because it helps them. I mean, they want more control ultimately. So we talk to regulators quite often, all the time, and some of their problems are things like just knowing. Well, actually, we spoke to one regulator. They get about 160 reports from their different licensed companies every quarter. And these reports, they come in PDFs, they come in Excel spreadsheets, they come in Word documents, all these different formats. The regulator needs to sift through it to find out what's going on. What are they actually doing? So it would be much better for the regulator, as far as they're concerned, if everybody was on their own, let's say Hong Kong dollar coin or whatever the coin the regulator issues, and everyone was on their private blockchain. They could see everything instantly. They would have real-time information about who's sending who money and who's what risk exposures are different banks exposed to. So I think as far as the regulator is concerned, it's a no-brainer. So they're definitely going to go that way, and that's going to be something that they're going to do. The question, I think, is how does this affect or compete with the cryptocurrencies and the existing stablecoins? I don't think it will. Because let's say you have a mobile app, right? You have government issued coin versus some stable coin or Bitcoin. One requires you to fill out a mountain of paperwork and provide your ID, and there's limitations and all this other stuff. One doesn't. Which one are you going to use? So I think it's pretty clear that there's still going to be a market for stablecoins. Crypto is going to continue to grow, but governments certainly will start issuing their own coins, and a lot of them are already talking about it. I think Singapore's been looking at it for a couple of years, and certainly China has as well. So yeah, I see it as a no-brainer.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about stablecoins. With XRP and XLM as well, and cross-border payments, because they're proposing obviously to be the key part. What's your sort of view on XRP and XLM and stablecoins in the usage of cross-border payments?
Yeah, so XRP with Ripple has been around for quite a while now. I think they started probably 2012, something like that. And essentially at the moment they have two core products. They have a couple of others, but the two ones that people talk about is XCurrent and XRapid. XCurrent is what all of the banks are signed up to. XCurrent is basically just a database that is better than Swift. And Swift, what is Swift? Swift is just a messaging thing. So it's like, I'm a bank, you're a bank, and I'm just going to send you a message to go, hey, debit my balance by $1 million. And credit this guy's balance over here by $1 million. And it's just a message, and they're exchanging these messages back and forth. But Swift was literally designed for telegraph wires. So, it doesn't have the capability for me to attach a PDF document, a piece of data to that transaction, compliance and blah, blah. So, what Ripple's providing with XCurrent is just a better way to do that, which for banks is fantastic. And, I think if you were a bank, you would probably see value in what XCurrent is. What XRapid is, nobody in the remittance industry, in crypto remittances, uses XRapid. Like literally nobody actually uses it for remittances. The reason for that is that there is no local fiat liquidity. So if we look at Philippines, or if we look at Mexico, or if we look at Indonesia or Nigeria, there is no XRP NGN market. And even if there was, it would be less liquid than the Bitcoin market. So what's the point of using it? So for example, if I send my XRP to Nigeria, who's going to convert it to NGN? At what rate? What's the liquidity? Like, where is the exchange? Like, how Ripple works is there's different nodes in the network. They all sort of ripple between each other, whereby they find the correct path to go with. There hasn't been more nodes in the public Ripple blockchain since like 3 years. I can go to ripplecharts.com. It's pretty much all just exchanges and crypto exchanges, and they're just exchanging XRP for Bitcoin. So it's not really helping remittances, right? There's no company that's taking XRP and giving me Nigerian Naira. So in that case, the thing is, okay, well, what crypto is? Is it XLM? Is it something else? Well, the only crypto which has liquidity in different currencies around the world is Bitcoin. Now, could there be cryptocurrencies which are faster and quicker and more private? Absolutely. And I think that's great. But the fact remains, it's like the rupee example. Like, I physically cannot exchange whatever coin that I have, like if it's an XRP or an XLM, into the local national currency, because there's just no liquidity. So, I don't really see, too much uptake of Ripple system anytime soon. I think Stellar, what they're trying to do is a little bit different. They're not targeting the banks, and also their system is mainly for exchanging IOUs. So remember, I spoke about earlier about how a money transfer company would pre-fund an account with somebody else. Like, they would take 20K, they would send it in one transaction, over to the other side, and then when somebody comes with $200 to their shop, they'll reduce the 20K balance at the other end. Essentially, what we call that is like netting and debits and credits. So it's like, I owe you some money, maybe you owe me some money at the end of the day. We'll work it out at the end of the day. If you're using traditional, non-crypto means, usually it's like a phone call, and it's like, hey, you got to, I owe you 50K today. All right, I'll settle that. That's literally how it works. So, what Stellar's trying to do is just make a better version of that, which I think is admirable. But, ultimately, you still need to move the money somehow, right? So how are you going to physically move the cash in one place to the other? And the way to do that is you need to buy something which has a value. And that's the difference between just having a database to do credits between each other and IOUs versus like I literally bought something of value and I gave it to you and now we're good. We settled the payments. Like, I can give you a piece of gold and you can go sell that gold in your local country. Great. And then, we don't owe each other any other money. I've given you the gold. It's all good. Same is true with Bitcoin, is if I give you some Bitcoin, I can, that's it done for me. I don't have to manage who owes who what. I can just pay you, you have it, and then you can sell it, and then that's it. So, that's why I think having a token of value is useful. And stable coins also are essentially a token of value. So, so I think, while these different systems like Stellar and Ripple are great, and I wish them all the best, at the moment, nobody's using it for these reasons. And it's just because using a thing of value helps the settlement a lot more.
So with so I think that's great. I think the liquidity is the problem with XRP and XLM in these countries, and the reality of it is just not there. Obviously you've been you trade millions of dollars of this, but IBM is sort of got this new WorldWire product coming out with potentially on XLM. Being used as gas and things like that, and potentially other coins. What's your view on? Do you think this is going to work, the WorldWire?
No. So I was at the conference in which they launched it, and I had a discussion with the IBM people. And essentially, what IBM's trying to do is very similar to what Ripple's trying to do with XRapid. It's like, here's a better database to manage these debits and credits between these different banks. And hey, if you're a bank, maybe you'll buy that from IBM, and maybe IBM will do great. But if you're a remittance company, you're not a massive bank or something like that, it doesn't really help you that much. If I have physical cash in one country, and then I'm using IBM's database to tell me that I owe some guy some money, in another country, cool. How does that help me? Like, I still have the cash in my office. So how do I actually get that cash to the other guy? So the IBM sort of WorldWire system, it doesn't assist with that settlement. The assumption is that the settlement happens via some other means. And what IBM essentially assume is you settle via a bank account. So it still means that you need a bank account, you need to do a Swift wire, you need to be subject to the bank exchange rates and all this kind of stuff. So sure, building a system that can track who owes who what is great, but it doesn't solve the I physically need to move my money to another country. How do I do that?
Wonderful. And then with, want to talk about your stablecoin as well. Tell us about, with the stablecoin, what sort of the mechanism you're sort of putting in place to build trust, and how does that work?
Yeah, so there's two types of stablecoins. One is the trusted and one is the trustless. So trusted has been around for quite a while. We've got things like Tether, we got things like USDC and Gemini dollar and stuff like that. Essentially, it's a company which says, hey, trust us because of these reasons, and we have money in our bank account. We're going to prove it to you or something like that. Now, trusted is fine. If you as an individual really trust that entity and you trust the bank, but there's a lot of things like counterparty risk. If you use a bank account, right? It's like what happened with Bitfinex a couple of years ago. Wells Fargo literally just cut the link between their Taiwan bank and the rest, and Bitfinex couldn't do any transfers, and that was just because the bank decided, no, you know what, we're probably not going to support that. So with a trusted, you do have this counterparty risk. With a trustless, you have the crypto collateral, so you don't. So it's all on the blockchain. So it's essentially, I can make one DAI with MakerDAO. I can lock up some Ethereum as collateral, and then I can make a DAI. So nobody has to see my bank account or prove that I have the money or go through an audit with PwC or whatever it might be. Like, it's all on the blockchain, and it's transparent. So in the case of SparkDex HKD, we are a trusted coin. It's cash in a physical vault. We provide quarterly audits of that cash, so people can physically see it, and we update that as soon as possible. But essentially, we're also going down the path of creating a lot of the algo coins for the different currencies, that we operate in. So in countries where we don't have a physical vault, or a physical location to receive the cash. That's where we would use the algo coins. For countries which we do, like Hong Kong and the Hong Kong dollar, that's why we use Sparkdex HKD. It's a trusted coin, and we provide the auditing mechanisms. And it's not money in a bank as well. So, it's not like a bank can shut us down. It's physical cash. So it's in a vault. So that's a lot less risky than dealing with a bank account who could shut you down and lose access to the money. And we've seen that recently with Quadriga. People wire money to some exchange's bank account, and then the bank says, "Oh, sorry, we're going to hold it, or we can't do withdrawals for you." And it's like, well, then you're stuffed. So I think having cash is a much better and easy to audit mechanism.
Awesome. And you said that with the other countries like Sri Lanka and things like that, you would consider using a trustless stablecoin, or can you talk us through that?
Absolutely. So, our intent is by the end of the year, we want to have 180 stablecoins for 180 different currencies. And the way that we're going to do that is essentially by using these trustless stablecoins, because we don't have the means to physically accept the cash in 180 different countries. So the best mechanism to service them is to have a algo stablecoin that operates in that country and currency. And then for us, that gives us the ability to buy this bit rupee, right? Like if somebody wants to use our system in Sri Lanka, they need to hold a balance in rupee. If there is a stablecoin which can do that, we can now physically buy that stablecoin rupee. So we're able to service that country now, which is great. So this is the scalable mechanism to do it and compete with Western Union and MoneyGram and these other guys, because the existing incumbents, they literally own both ends. Like Western Union has 550,000 physical outlets in every country in the world, in every currency in the world. So if you need to distribute money, like let's say, you're some new company, you want to send money to Mali, right? Like there's only one provider in Mali, and that's pretty much Western Union. So it doesn't matter how cool your system is and what cool tech it needs, you still need to integrate with the same guy as everybody else at the end of the day who's physically distributing the money. Essentially you need to be able to remove that dependence for you to be able to get a better rate and a better deal for your customers. So being able to have a stable coin removes the need for you to integrate with that guy, because that guy's like Western Union is the only one with a bank account in these different countries everywhere. But if you don't need a bank account to operate, well, that's the best of both worlds, right? As you can operate in these countries and these currencies without the need for a bank, and you don't need to physically be there as well. So that's what we really see as the scalable way to grow the remittance industry now. Bitcoin has been great for us for the last couple of years, but we're transitioning over to using these stablecoins for the payments.
Wonderful. Last two questions, George. I don't want to hold you up. I think you got some really great insight. Last thing is, how much value do you think Bitcoin provides to Wall Street?
I don't know. I think, Wall Street, it doesn't really do too much volume in the crypto space. So, with the CBOE futures contracts and all these sorts of things, it's not at BitMEX volumes yet. And when it's at BitMEX volumes, then we can stand up and pay attention. But I think that Wall Street has no interest in seeing things change, right? Like, why does Wall Street want everyone to be rolling their own stablecoin and subverting the need for a bank, and everyone in all these different countries in the world, instead of being dependent on 15% exchange fees and so on, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see everybody being their bank. So I think that it's kind of Bitcoin and crypto is kind of the antithesis of what Wall Street wants, but they see that there's money to be made in it. So they've got all sorts of different things which they can try and extract some money from it somehow. So, but ultimately, I don't see Wall Street really driving the adoption of it, because as we've seen over the last couple of years, the trading volume of cryptos predominantly been in Asia, and we see it growing in countries that are having problems like Venezuela, or in Indonesia, the price is always higher as well. There's millions of different users of cryptocurrency there. These are the countries which it really matters in. So Wall Street may see some value, might not see some value, might use some crazy options brokerage stuff, whatever. But ultimately, the value will be derived from just millions of people in these different countries having access to finance, which they don't currently have. And it's just fundamentally, it's a better way to do it. They can download a wallet for free, and now they can do everything. That sounds like a great idea.
Awesome. Last question we ask everyone on the show, George, is when the clock strikes 12 on New Year's Eve this year, what do you think the price of Bitcoin in US dollars will be? This is not financial advice. No financial advice. We don't do financial advice on this show. But yeah, it's just purely your opinion, and we sort of just want to see where your mind's at. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's probably going to be above 6K, maybe 6,500 US. So I do think that we're going to see a bull market this year. It's not going to be a massive one like 2017, but 6.5, that's where we're at.
Awesome. George, thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Exchange. You can follow George on Twitter. You can see his Twitter details there. And George_Harrap. And we appreciate what you're doing for the industry, with particularly on the ground, actually transferring money across borders. So thank you so much, George.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here, and all the best.
All right, guys, that is the Daily Exchange today. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah.